Welcome to another episode of Russian Hate Speech, where we break down the Kremlin's latest lies against the West. During the program 60 Minutes, special edition on July 4, 2025, aired on the Russian state channel, Abtialaudinov, assistant to the head of the Chechen Republic and commander of the Akhmat Special Forces unit, justified Russia's military invasion of Ukraine. In any scenario, the minimum outcome will be this. The longer this war goes on, the less territory Ukraine will have. And when they refuse negotiations and don't agree that they must leave the territories currently under our control, it should come as no surprise. Moreover, we are not interested in leaving Ukraine, the Odessa and Mykolaiv regions. In fact, we should ideally reach Transnistria to our brothers, so this entire line is closed. Alaudinov's statement is a clear endorsement of territorial conquest, portraying Ukraine's sovereign regions as bargaining chips. Kremlin continues to mask its imperial ambitions as strategic necessity, denying Ukraine's right to its own land. On July 10, 2025, during an episode of Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, writer and political commentator Nikolai Starikov equated European rearmament with Nazi Germany's preparations for war. When we hear German rhetoric today, history helps us understand what they mean. Pistorius and the current chancellor talking about rearmament, saying Russia is aggressive and ready to attack. This is Hitler's rhetoric. It's literally the same speech Hitler gave on the night of June 22. The same arguments. That Germany takes responsibility, the Soviet Union is aggressive. But Hitler wasn't the first to say this. Napoleon said it. Charles XII said it. They always say the same thing. All this rhetoric, all this rearmament will inevitably lead to a preemptive strike on us. By drawing false parallels between modern Germany and Nazi Germany, Starikov attempts to delegitimize European efforts to strengthen defense capabilities. The goal is to frame any NATO or EU security initiative as a threat to Russia, thus justifying potential Russian aggression. On July 6, 2025, during the show Weekly Program with Pyotr Marchenko on REN TV, political commentator Anton Zolotnitsky spread hate speech targeting European and Moldovan leaders. The Russian Foreign Ministry has repeatedly pointed out the West's attempts to rewrite history. European elites benefit from erasing our country from the list of Second World War victors. For many politicians in the old world, revising the war's outcome is a way to save their own histories. Friedrich Merz's grandfather was a Nazi stormtrooper. Kaja Kallas' ancestor led a pro-Nazi organization in Estonia. The new head of British intelligence, MI6, is the granddaughter of a Ukrainian Nazi and war criminal. Zolotnitsky's statements are aimed at discrediting democratic leaders by invoking imaginary Nazi legacies. This tactic serves to demonize any opposition to Russian policy as inherently fascist, a cornerstone of Kremlin disinformation. During the July 6, 2025 episode of Sunday Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, Belarusian MP Vadim Gigin argued that distancing from Russia threatens national security across the former Soviet space. Russia's leadership in our region is not an expression of imperialist thinking, as some believe. It is a necessity. Distancing from Russia leads to national security threats for each of these countries. I would talk not only about the post-Soviet space, but also much more broadly. I would include the Balkans here too. History shows that whenever nations distance themselves from Russia, they faced existential challenges they could not overcome alone. This rhetoric frames Russia as a protective force, implying that sovereignty brings instability unless tied to Moscow. Gigin's message seeks to pressure neighboring countries into submission under the guise of shared security. In the same program, Solovyov called Armenia's government a satanic regime, accusing it of persecuting pro-Russian voices.
We can see what's happening in Armenia. It's absolute satanism. They arrested 2 archbishops. threw Samuel Sarkisovich Karapetyan in prison just because he dared to say that you can't treat the Armenian Apostolic Church like that. And now they're trying to take away his property in a completely lawless manner. At the same time, Armenia has hired mankurds, young police officers who don't care about anything, armed, with only red license plates everywhere. It's a free-for-all over there. Everything's there. Why? Because the goal is to eliminate Russian influence.
Solovyov's framing of Armenian domestic politics as a war on religion and Russian loyalty illustrates how the Kremlin recasts internal reform as hostile subversion. During the same episode, Solovyov targeted Azerbaijan with remarks filled with hostility toward Azerbaijan, invoking the threat of nuclear escalation and portraying Azerbaijan as a potential military threat to Russia.
Look at what's happening with Azerbaijan. Things may seem calm now, gradually settling down, but the question remains, what about our citizens there? Yes, we've allowed consular services, but what is really going on? And more importantly, this tone, all those statements that were made, is this normal? One of their former officials in Azerbaijan recently said they are planning to build the largest military base and invite a nuclear-armed country there, supposedly Pakistan. I hope he just went insane. But if he hasn't, what then? How are we supposed to respond to this? Like we did back in 2022? What kind of threat would that pose to our country?
This segment is a clear example of Russian propaganda aiming to stir distrust and tension with Azerbaijan by suggesting it could host foreign nuclear powers. Solovyov frames the situation as a looming national security threat, evoking past conflicts and implying that Russia may need to respond militarily, a tactic used frequently to justify future aggression under the guise of defensive measures. Also, on Evening with Vladimir Solovyov on July 7th, political analyst Sergei Mikheyev generalized that all post-Soviet regimes are inherently Russophobic. Except for Belarus, all post-Soviet political regimes are deeply Russophobic. No matter what their leaders say or how many handshakes we exchange. Deep down, they are focused on maintaining power through distancing from Russia and varying degrees of virulent Russophobia. Mikheyev's sweeping accusation is designed to portray Russia as a perpetual victim, while branding neighboring nations as a hostile and untrustworthy. This narrative fuels internal paranoia and external aggression. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for the next episode of Russian Hate Speech, as we continue exposing Kremlin's war on reality.